I grew up in Gurdon, Arkansas, a small town with just over 2,700 people. I had a happy life until a defining event occurred during my senior year of high school. I had the highest grade point average in my graduating class, so I was slated to be the valedictorian, the first valedictorian since integrations of our school. But for some, that could not be, because a black person could not be higher than a white person. There were school board members and some influential community members who had gotten together over a course of years to devise a plan so that I wouldn't be named, but a white student would. I found out about that from one of my oldest friends in the high school. We had been friends since elementary school, and she told me. So what would a child do? Go home and tell your parent. I went home and told my mother, who happened to be a teacher in that same district. And instead of telling me it would be okay, she put herself at risk. She hired an attorney, and she threatened to sue the school district. At the end of it all, after a very emotional school board meeting, where I was made the middle of the controversy, even though I had done nothing wrong but my work and excel, I was named valedictorian. But it shifted me. I would no longer be the same. Although I had never been naive, I never had been treated in such a hurtful and traumatic manner. I decided I didn't ever want anyone to ever feel that way because of something that I did. So I wanted to be part of the solution and be positive change in any community I lived in. As I moved through the world and became an adult, I kept that with me. In 1994, I moved to Portland to be closer to my family. At that point, I had a daughter, and my parents had moved out here, and I wanted her to have that same intergenerational connection that I had with my grandparents and my great-grandmother, so I thought I'd give Portland a try. When I moved here, people were honest about the lack of diversity, but no one could tell me why. So I decided I'd educate myself. I'd go to the Oregon Historical Society, I'd read books, I'd talk to people, and I'd figure out why it was so. So understanding the good and the bad, and even though I felt welcome here, I still wasn't sure that I wanted to plant roots here instead of going to a more diverse and progressive city. In 1999, specifically on April 22nd, Oregon did something that most other states have never done. It acknowledged its racist, discriminatory history by having a day of acknowledgement at the state capitol. I went, along with 800 other people, to watch this resolution be passed and signed and become an incredible part of history. During that day of acknowledgement, the resolution removed language that prevented blacks and other groups from living in this state. It was interesting because 150 years plus, in 1840, the Exclusionary Act of Oregon was passed that prevented blacks from living in the state. So I began to have a multitude of emotions. And I started remembering how I felt when everything was happening to me in Gurdon. And I said, okay, things are getting better, but there's a lot more work to do. So I said, let me be part of it. I've been doing dialogues and trying to bring people together across differences ever since I've been in Oregon, but I said I'm going to lean in a little bit more to that. So, 20 years later, I'm still doing the work. And I see that while we've made some progress, there's still a lot of work to do. All we have to do is see what's happening in the country today. With the violent protests and the mass shootings, we can't help but feel unsafe. I don't know about you, but I'm feeling sad and I'm weary. People are walking around in their cocoons of privilege, fear, shame, desensitization, and they're not being connected to one another. We can't even see each other. I walk past people all the time, every day, in and out, and I say hello. They kind of jump. They're surprised. I saw them. They didn't necessarily see me. I think that's a problem. We have to see each other. We have to acknowledge that violence, poverty, and lack of access to education, housing, health care, and other systemic barriers are fracturing our country and destroying our shared humanity. We have to stand up to the divisive rhetoric that is coming out on a regular basis, consistently letting us know that it is okay to demean and demonize people who don't look like you. I stand here and say, it's not okay. We all have a responsibility to move to some collective awareness and start fighting things that are happening in our country. It's not enough to have these conversations internally or maybe in small groups that, oh my gosh, did you see that media attention where on one station, people who are finding food and shelter during the hurricane are seen as survivors, but gosh, if you look at the footage on another one and on another station, there are people of color, they're calling them looters and refugees. How can you be a refugee in your own country? You can't. So you need to start questioning your sources of information, how you interact with people, when and why you feel you want to speak up. Expand those sources of information so that you won't fall into what so many people fell into during the recent political events in our country, the confirmation bias. You have to move and stand and be bridges of understanding. We need powerful discourse because discourse is an important thread in the fabric of our democracy. It is important that we have those conversations. We need to return to a level of civility, have some integrity, and then move to a higher level of listening, understanding, and respecting. We have to see the links between the marginalization of people, capitalism, and everything in between. We need to understand that inequality is not merely a problem of individual actions, but is a consequence of institutions and social structures. We got to stay awake. Now, I want you to understand that I am a person of privilege, as it was described as I came out. But I can tell you that my privilege changes depending on where I am. In my day job, I have some power and privilege and influence depending on who the person is. In the Black community, same can be true. But let me step out of those courthouse steps and start going home. Not so much. As a matter of fact, maybe not at all. I'm a Black woman with all the stereotypes attached. Now that's maybe what they think. I reject that. I am a beautiful human that has much to give. But I take that understanding and move in and out of the world. I've been stopped by the police. And when I was stopped, they were like, do you know why you were stopped? No, I don't know why I was stopped because I hadn't done anything wrong. But I could tell you a lot of reasons why I was stopped because I think this is a pretext, but I know that would be a problem. So I learned how to, as so many people have taught me, how to survive the insult, to live, to fight. And so I'm encouraging you to be awake. And I want you to be awake by doing this. A, actively listen for understanding. W, willingly engaging in actions with your open hearts and minds. A, act in a respectful way. Tap into the humanity of everyone who comes before you. K, keep judgments out of what you do. Resist that temptation. Resist that natural inclination to step back. Lean in. E, engage in a way where you can create bonds and develop solutions. Our world is dependent upon it. Put all that together. A-W-A-K-E, it spells awake. I want you to stay awake. I want you to stay awake because our collective conscience is dependent upon it. We have to start being truth tellers. We can't pick and choose the part of the truth we like. We have to address all of it. The good, the bad, the ugly, whatever. We have to address that because otherwise we can't move forward. And without addressing what's wrong, we can't be better. We can't build. I don't want you to keep focusing on the negative. I want you to focus on words such as include, invite, invest, initiate, innovate, inspire. Because by doing so, you're making the invisible visible. And you're creating the world that we need it to be, not just that we want it to be. I am very proud to be American. Not because of what other people have told me, but because I believe America belongs to all of us, and not just a select few. And I don't know about you, but I'm not letting anyone define my America like I wouldn't let anybody define me. I think what we need to do is really start talking about how we're going to do this. It's time to move beyond feelings and move into action. I think we need to have open hearts, clarity of purpose, and step into the uncomfortable. I think it is time for us to believe. Once we believe, then we lead. We must lead. So I want to leave with you this poem that was written by a local person in Portland. Her name is Shamika Owens, and she wrote this for the Black Women for Peace organization. P, protect the liberties of others as well as myself. E, educate myself so I can be the best I can be. A, actively listen to understand, not to judge. C, choose grace when I have the opportunity to take offense. E, extend myself to others and expect nothing in return. When you put all of that together, it spells peace. Because I can tell you, once you stay awake, you do the work. I'm not going to tell you it's perfect. You're going to be tired. You're going to be exhausted. But you can pick yourself back up and continue the work. Because once you see what is being beautifully created, you get encouraged. I believe that we need to stay awake so that we can have peace. So I say to you, peace, blessings, and love.